So from an overall African strategy, how do you suggest we tackle that subject? I mean, it's a broad subject. Every country is different. There's a plethora of challenges, but with challenge comes opportunity, right? How would you suggest we go about doing that?
So what we see, of course, in Cato is that every region is very different, right? Be that Asia, be that Europe, US, South America, Africa. And we're aware that how business is done and how decisions are made are different as well, right? When we look at Africa overall, and again, within Africa, there's a lot of regions, right? We see that some of the bigger challenges are they're very hardware driven, which makes sense, of course. They tend to stick with hardware and bigger vendors, which is more on the safety side of things. But how we want to always approach it is we want to make sure that we're fit for that customer, right? It's not always a broad brush saying that every customer in Africa is the same. So as Anthony said earlier, we focus on those use cases within that customer and it fits them and on. And we have quite a few customers out here already, and we found those use cases that actually help them with their business. Now, one element in Africa, I think one of the biggest challenges, sometimes costing can be quite a challenge. However, when we look at it, sometimes customers don't understand the difference between kind of the hardware element and then what the difference is with the platform. So you can look at the cost, maybe the platform might be more expensive in their view. So the first thing we want to do is we want to show value before we talk about anything. So value to the customer, but also the hidden costs, right? We want to show them that, yes, you can go for hardware and the traditional route, but the hidden costs there are quite enormous, right? So one major hidden cost is, of course, when you have hardware, it goes end of life. You have to refresh that every 4 or 5 years, right? You have to patch all your hardware all the time. If there's new CVEs out in the market, you have to put them on that hardware as well. And this is a huge human cost that comes along with it. And I think a lot of businesses need to start looking at that, because what a platform allows is that you don't have to do any of those anymore, right? Those costs are gone. And again, the IT teams can start focusing on other things instead of kind of fixing the problem constantly. So sometimes customers don't compare it always. They think it's apples to apples, right? But it's not. They need to look at, hey, what is the overall cost over the term, and what is kind of the running of the platform cost versus the running of what we have today. And that's how we want to always approach it, and that's how we would approach it in Africa as well. And I think that's the most important piece that we have to get across to our customers here. And when we do get it across, they get it, and they get it very quickly, because then they start looking at that. But yeah, the human cost is huge. And, at least in other regions outside of Africa, the IT teams are shrinking and shrinking. So they understand very quickly that those costs need to go, and they want to transfer that into the platform. Let the vendor deal with it. Why do we need to do it, right? Let the vendor do it. And I think that simplifies that conversation with the customers here.
Yeah. So regulatory, how do we get around that?
So regulation-wise, actually, Cato follows all the major regulations that customers have asked for. We wouldn't have been able to build our business without adapting to all those regulations. So when we look at the regulations in Europe, in the US, in Africa as well, we all abide by all those regulations that have been asked for. And if we haven't, one thing that we do pretty well is we go and get certified very quickly if there's a particular regulation that needs to be in there. Right. And we do that, again, our certifications are not like, hey, this is a global certifications. We have particular certifications in every single market that customers are wanting. So we make sure we cover those.
So proliferation of devices and appliances out there, hard to manage. If you're wanting to bring on a new feature, you either need to upgrade the software or buy an appliance that has that feature innate. Then from a serviceability point of view and a management point of view, kind of difficult. So it gets that ticks that box.
Yeah, I mean it's a beautiful thing because we're a cloud and we're a platform. If you want to have an extra license for an extra feature, we just switch it on, right? That's all it is. Since all that network traffic is going over us anyway, we just switch on that feature and they can go. instead of them having to go out and again RFP, test it. They can test it in their live environment already because it's running there, right? So again, that's the great thing about platform, is that agility also, not just to move across the space of their sites and their users, but also to move across security. And the good thing is, again, the easy thing is moving budgets over is quite easy, right? You're just moving budget from X to Y. And with the platform, that makes it a lot easier versus doing a huge transformation again. You can avoid that.
Well, I think to add to that, I think in terms of your point, Stuart, around an upgrade required for a new feature, like obviously Cato, we upgrade everything as part of our solution. Like the customer doesn't have to do any sustainment around the solution. But if you look at something like TLS inspection, so from a threat prevention, the stuff is coming in over HTTPS now. Very little actually over HTTP, but yet the traditional appliance model, the amount of customers we talk to who have no TLS decryption turned on, because if they turn it on, the performance on the hardware box just plummets. It falls off a cliff. So they essentially can't do it. And then they don't want to, spec the box for way over specced, for just this service essentially. But because we're architected where we're doing the processing at the POP layer, we can just do it. And it doesn't affect any throughput. It's done off site. So that agility again means, that you can actually get time to value on these things, because all the hardware vendors can do TLS decryption, but why aren't people turning it on? And it's this thing about time to value. It's no good having these features if you can't turn them on and make them work. So everything with Cato is about getting the value to the customer and making sure that they use it.